Welcome to the High Agency Podcast with your host, Noah Ravoy.
To rebuild the West, we must first rebuild ourselves and our communities. Localism and the recreation of small, insular, autarkic, supportive communities is a really hot topic right now. The system that we live in has never been so fragile and so unhealthy as it is right now. And this is pushing many to build alternatives. Even the elites recognize that the current status quo is over. They seek a great reset, while we seek a great offset, to offset ourselves from society, a separation from their sick and dying world, and the recreation of a new Western world. My guest today is Kiel Clenney of Homegrown Sanctuary, where they like to discuss independence, rural living, self-sufficiency, and even creating masculine spaces. Welcome. Welcome, Kiel.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I really enjoyed some of your posts and listening to some of your podcasts, and it's really the hot topic now is talking about how do we become more self-sufficient. And we've gone from this globalist world where everything's plugged in. The counter to that is we're going local, where we're connected with our local communities at a deeper level than ever before.
Yeah. Yep. I started my journey with that approximately 6 years ago. We bought a house in town, and then my wife said 6 months into the home purchase that she wanted to move to the country. So that was amazing and not irritating at all. So then I completely re-engineered my thinking about getting the house ready for sale to move into the country. And when you live in the country, you have different desires than living in town. One of them's having animals, having a large garden, how you heat your home, all these different things. And it really inspired me to look at homesteading and actually how people used to live in the 1800s. That's always kind of been, I'd say, like a boyhood fantasy, like 40 acres on Indian country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just really got into that, and I started doing a lot of research. And we ended up buying the house in December of 2019 because we have to move in the middle of the winter for some reason. And we bought our first house in December too. And so we were, all the time we were moving in the snow. And our first year, we discovered quite a bit about the property itself, the land itself, and we did some raised beds. We started growing plants, did some canning, just really hit the ground running. And I've been recording it on Twitter as I do it with it's at home_grown_sank. And it's not just homesteading. I post goofy things. I post a little bit about current events, but a lot of it is what I do in real time. Like this morning, I burned my beard filling the wood boiler. So I said, sacrifice part of my beard to the wood boiler, Yeah. So.
Yeah, that is, dealing with fire and beards, you do get singed quite often. Yeah, no, it's amazing that a lot of people think, I wasn't raised on a farm or I wasn't raised in a rural area and I can't adjust to that. And it's just not possible for me to make that adjustment. What am I going to do living out in the woods? And the reality of it is when they get out there, they find that they actually really enjoy it. Getting closer to a natural way of living is going to feel more natural, obviously, right? The city living, the urban living, that's the unnatural state. That's the uncomfortable. There's a good reason why the cities, the question was always, do the cities attract crazy people or do the cities make people crazy? And the studies that I've seen say it's a little of both. The people end up attracted to that kind of high stimulation lifestyle tend to end up burning out. And then we see cities full of broken people. And you get out to the country and you start to heal. You start to breathe that fresh air, feel the open space, feel the trees, and really heal. And I know people that have, for work or whatever, had to live in the cities for a few years that were country people. They seemed like a caged animal. It was really uncomfortable to them. And I think a lot of us have just come to tolerate living on top of each other. And when we get out to the country, we don't want to go back.
Yeah, I used to go camping. Well, I still go camping, but I would go for a weekend, and I always sleep good when I'm camping. Like I was in the Army. When we go to the field, I got the best sleep ever in the field. When I'm outside and I'm living with the sun and the moon, and breathing that fresh air, and I'm outside, you acclimate to the weather very quickly, and it's really a sense of peace about it. It, like you said, it's your natural state. And I was for work, I traveled to Massachusetts for 2 weeks. By the end of the second week, like I was starting to talk like I was starting to get the road rage like they had, because I never really got it when I first got there, like El Paso. I lived in El Paso too, because I was stationed there, and they were awful drivers. So I totally got my road rage there. But like in Massachusetts, it was different. It was like everybody was impatient, and I didn't really get it until the second week where I was there, and somebody didn't start going when the light turned green. And I was mad about it. And I was like, and I kind of I'm like, why am I so angry? And then I realized if they didn't move quick enough and I had to wait for the light to turn green again, that was going to be about 15 minutes. Yeah. So I think that's kind of why people are so impatient, is because you don't have a lot of time. Everything's compressed. And time is money. You got to rush everywhere. You got to beat rush hour. You know what I mean? It's just insanity. I don't like it.
Yeah, I know. Nowadays, a lot of people that live in the country and that have small hobby farms, they also have some sort of a job where they work from home. You instead of having an hour and a half commute, you get up, you stretch your legs, you have a coffee, you feed your pigs and your chickens and whatever else you got. And in the same time it would have taken you to do your commute, you've looked after your entire home. Yeah. And, drop some wood, whatever it is. It's not that it's going to be a huge burden for you. There's a lot of people that say, well, I can buy food cheaper than I can raise it. And okay, calorie for calorie, that's probably true. I mean, in a way, you can go and get cheap junk calories really cheaply. There's a big difference in raising your own food. And it's not just the quality difference. It's the quality of life difference, to say, I'm eating some bacon that I raised myself, these are pigs that my kids fed. And this is one of the things too, that you get out in the country. It's not just you. Kids, they're desperate for something to do. Now they've got something productive to do. My son's constantly saying, hey, can I do some work? Is there some way I can earn some money? Give me something to do. And my job is not really a very physical one. And so, there's this kind of stuff and talking to people and helping people. So I don't have a lot I can give him. Get out to the farm. It's like, yeah, sure. You're important. You're going to be able to make sure that we get the chickens out in the morning. You're going to go collect the eggs. You're going to go weed the garden. You're going to let the dog out, whatever it happens to be. And they have a bunch of responsibilities, and you can, give them a little allowance for that, because especially if you're exporting something off your hobby farm, selling milk or cheese or whatever. And this gives kids the opportunity to do something productive. Part of the reason kids are kept in school so long is to make sure that they're not part of the productive class until they're almost 30. Yeah. And this is a way of, because as soon as you become part of the productive class, everything in your life changes. You get your first check and you go, they took how much taxes? Everything changes, and they want to keep kids away from that as long as possible. Keep them in school for, 2 decades if they can. And you get out on a farm. Farm kids are completely different. They think about things different. They think about work different. I can visually identify here kids that were raised in the farms and kids that were raised in the city. The city kids are skinny. They got bad posture. The farm kids look like they were just busy baling 40 acres of hay. They all look healthy, fit, and they look at you. Mm-hmm. Whereas the city kids, in the city, you keep your head down. You don't want to look at people. That's how you get in a fight. In the country, you look at people because that shows you're an honest man. And so it's a completely different environment.
Yeah, I graduated high school in a rural town in Illinois. You could always tell the farm kids, not just by the way they dressed, but they always had something to do after school. So I was never raised on a farm or nothing, and so where I'd go home and play video games, because that's all I had to do, right? I say, hey, you wanna go do this? Like, no, I got to power wash the barn because there's a bunch of pig poop on it, and like that was again, or I got to bale hay, or I got to check on my chickens, or I have to repair a fence. It was always something productive, something not for themselves. Like, because I got my first job at 15 detasseling corn, and then I worked at a local factory. So my money was for me, right? And that wasn't like selfish. My parents told me, like, if you want things, you're buying them, right? Like, and I don't mean like food and clothing, but like anything extra. So I went to work, and my paychecks were mine, and then I blew the money on whatever. But those farm kids, like, it didn't really seem like they got much of a cut, like from the production of the farm. You know what I mean? Because they were poor. Like, that was the other thing. It's like, do we have a good year? Do we have a bad year? And so it was always selfless. It was they were busy helping the family. They were busy helping their uncle, and it was very much a family event to make sure everything went smoothly. And it was neat. Like, I had a welding class, and I would just make stuff because I didn't have anything to do, right? I didn't have any reason for a metal object, and not in my room or whatever. My buddy made an auger for his farm. Yeah. So I helped him make an auger. Like, I think I made a plant pitcher. Like, that's, like a vase to put that's all I did, because I didn't have anything to make. And he made this. Oh, go ahead.
Kids will spend 10 hours playing a video game to build a farm in a video game, and these kids are out there actually building a farm. And what they really get is they inherit the farm at the end.
Yes.
So they are contributing in the long term, and this is why you'll notice that rural people tend to have a very long term outlook, and city people are worried about paying the bills at the end of the month, because there is no seasonal anything. Nothing is seasonal. Nothing is multi-generational, and because nothing lasts that long in the city. And the rural people, they're thinking, okay, how do I leave this farm to my kids?
Right.
How do I got 4 sons. How do I make sure that I can't divide the farm between the 4 of them? How do I get, how do we get all these kids doing farming if that's what they want to do? So they're thinking very far ahead. And that really deeply changes how you view the world when you think in these long-term. I'm encouraging people to think in terms of 1,000 years. For the next 1,000 years, how is your culture going to win, and what will it look like at the end of 1,000 years? If you're thinking like that, you're going to make winning decisions.
I have not looked at that 1,000-year block of time, but I have looked at like 20 and 50 years personally, and what it looks like. What was that?
I think people are making comments. Let me see.
Oh.
My beard has grown to epic proportions. Absolutely, it sure has. Thank you, Rabbi.
So, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was asking me about short term. Like, he's like, when are you going to be self-sufficient? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And I kept saying, like, man, I got like the next 3 to 4 years making a windbreak. I got to clear these woods. I got to plant. I got to have them grow. I have to treat the soil. You know what I mean? And so you're right. When you look at the long view, it completely changes what you're prioritizing, And so for us, what we're doing is we're trying to buy like the most mature trees possible. That way we save time. We save years, right? If I can save 3-4 years on tree growth, I'm going to do it, because it's cheaper to pay more money for a tree than to wait the 4 years for the benefit of the windbreak or the benefit of the fruit, because we're planting apple trees this year.
Yeah, it is really an investment, and that's what you're looking at it is. Whereas if you live in a city, you're a consumer. Everything is about consumption. Whereas when you live in a rural area or in an area where natural resources are what you're working with, you're more thinking of an investment. You have to put more into the land than is coming out so that the soil improves, You develop your water system so that it's as little work as possible. And what you're thinking about is, in like 5 years, how is this going to be less work for me? How can I get more out, more value out of it with less input into it over time, making it self-sustaining. I'm a fan of permaculture and what Joe Saladin and guys like that are doing. And they're thinking, it takes 10, 15 years how to turn a wild land into a productive farm, and using their system of very little inputs, very little initial investment, but doing it the right way, making the most of every part of the investment that you can, and thinking of it as an integrated system. Most environmentalists are city people. Most people who actually interact with the environment are rural people. Yes. And rural people don't have the romantic notions that the city people have about the environment. They look at it as, this is a biological machine, and I survive, and everyone survives off this biological machine. How do we run it right? Whereas the city people are like, don't touch nature. Stay away from nature. Stay out of it.
There's no historical precedence for that anyway. In America, the Native Americans cultivated the land. One of the things that really bothers me,
the prairies were caused by them mass burning trees. The prairies used to be covered in trees. They mass burned the forests that were there so that they could create more grazing space for the bison.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was forested before, and they burned it down. Kind of like how the Australian Aboriginals would burn out areas of Australia to encourage grazing animals to reproduce, because they don't do so well in the forest.
So what I heard was that in the forest themselves, they would gather up all the dead branches and they would burn them to get rid of all the bugs and stuff. That's what I was referring to. But that's interesting. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, they massively changed the environment.
It sounds like it. Did you think it's interesting that we went from bison to cows?
Yeah, not that big of a difference. Like less shaggy, but
right. I always thought that was a little interesting.
When it was bison, it was nature, so that's okay. When it's a cow, the farts cause global warming. So you see, the difference is that we did it, and also that the cows are productive to us for some reason. Therefore, we're not allowed to do them.
It's a very strange thing.
Fantasy notion that people disconnected from nature have about nature.
Yeah, I think Disney's a real problem, because they make animals look like your friend, and they're not. And I was reading a tweet from a lady. She actually marked a hiking trail as a 1-star and says, like, don't go there, because they went up there during the day and had a great time, watched some fireworks. And when they were coming back down, they saw spiders and centipedes. And she was like, she didn't like it. She's like, this is awful. I'm like, what did you think lived out there? It's like in my bedroom, we found a snake. So I just put some gloves on and took him outside. You live with it. You don't try to kill it all off or to sanitize it all, because that's not how nature works.
Yeah, and if you notice too, in most of the you mentioned Disney, almost all of their movies are about the prey animal winning out over the predator animal. And it is not, the prey animals they're not really competing. They are part of a cycle that works together, and you can't take any part of that cycle out. You'll end up collapsing the whole thing. And we know this in areas where we killed all the wolves, and the population of deer or whatever herbivore was there, the dominant herbivore, would expand, especially on an island. This happens, it'll expand until it completely collapses. You end up with almost nothing alive in the end, denudes the forest, and then kills all the animals. And that I think that artificial conflict that they create out in nature also greatly affects how people view society as well. We have that kind of cycle in society. Some people provide a more warrior role in society, and they're the protectors and the fighters, and some people are the producers, and some people are more that what you call first function, the priests and kings and the wizard type people, the people who invent things and create things. And what ends up happening is they show it as animals against each other, But what they're really trying to say is people, the different classes of people should not be getting along with each other, should not be cooperating, because it's some sort of a competitive or predatory environment. And so I think it's all of these things. You live out in nature and you see how things really are. You can't ignore nature. You can't ignore hierarchy. You can't pretend that, the wolf is not who the wolf is. You can't imagine the wolf as a fluffy creature. You can't, if you've been up close to deer, they're not so friendly either.
Right.
There's no friendly animals. A friendly animal is a sick animal. That's about it. Otherwise, they're not.
Yeah, I was going to say the thing about predators is they pick on the weak and the disabled and the sick. So they actually form a good role. It's important to thin out the herd so the herd's strong, And you're right about the classes. We do have this idea that predatory behavior by nature is evil. While I'm an American, my country is probably the most predatory country in the world, like objectively speaking. And no American thinks like that. We think we're bringing good and whatever else to the world, And you could make a case for whether we do or we don't, but you can't make a case that it's not predatory. We look for weaknesses and then we exploit them to get our way. We do it to everybody. We do it to each other. We do it to other nations. We do it to economies. It's the way we are. But Americans have this idea that we're all peaceful and we all love each other, and you know what I mean. And it's surface. It's totally surface. It's not even close.
And we are a part of nature, therefore, and we are the top predators in nature. We're at the top of the pyramid of predators in nature. It is in our nature to be predatory, and in fact, human civilization's been about managing that predatory instinct that we have so as not to completely consume each other.
Right. And if you look at hunters and fishermen, they're the ones who are always the most concerned about population levels, the size of the game, the abundance of it, the lack of, the scarcity. If there's scarcity, they put their money where their mouth is and they try to increase the population levels. We're the people who are the most concerned about invasive species, and you look at a lot of there are some corporations now that are just they're releasing GMO mosquitoes in Florida. They just did that. And do we really need another type of mosquito? It's just it's just wild. It's just absolutely wild.
Well, and you mentioned something interesting. It's the people who enjoy who have that instinct to go out and hunt and fish and be out in nature, but also be out in nature as predators, that are more concerned with the health of the ecosystem. And I find that's true even at a human level. Amongst humans, it's the warrior class and what I call the kings and class that are more concerned about the future of society, whereas the vast majority of people that fall into kind of the consuming, producing classes, all they want to do is consume and produce. They don't think about the future. They don't think even as far as a farmer would think ahead, at least one season at minimum. They think about nothing but their next paycheck. Or for a lot of people, it's literally they're just thinking about their current day at work. And then they get, what am I going to eat when I get home? That's it. They don't think any farther ahead. And we need, it is that warrior class. The reason that they think ahead is because they understand that somewhere in another country, there's a warrior class of that country thinking how to also prey on us. And, people will say the U.S. is the most predatory country in the world. Yes. Would you like to be the second predatory country or the bottom of the?
No. And that's the thing. That's what I actually really like about Switzerland. Switzerland is designed to be, it's designed to be so defensive that it's not worth attacking it.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to be predatory, you have to have a defense against it. You have to make the cost so high that nobody would even bother. It's no accident that they weren't involved in either world war.
Well, they also cultivate a militia mentality. Mm-hmm. Every man recognizes that he has a moral obligation to defend the nation. And when the United States had that you also were engaged in less wars. Back when the idea that every man a sheriff, every man armed, because every man understood, like when you're not an armed man right now in the current military situation, it's like, send that other guy off to fight, not me. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to go do that. Send that other guy off. There was no personal responsibility. And when every man was armed and every man had skin in the game, you know, think of it as early as the American Revolution. Those men, there's plenty of letters from men. Friend of mine, he showed one from his ancestor where he said, I've gathered together 100 guys. We're going to form a unit, but we don't have any military caliber weapons. We've only got little squirrel guns and stuff. Can you help supply us with weapons and coats for the winter? And we'll come and join the revolution. That's that we just don't have money for that because they're literally dirt poor. And yet they felt that personal responsibility to stand up for what they believed in, even though, you know, if they died, no one's going to look after their wife and kids because everyone else is poor too. You know, it really makes a huge, it really gives you some sense of the honor that these people had to recognize that they had a personal responsibility to contribute to the defense of the commons.
Yeah. And that was the thing. It wasn't this idea of this foreigner in a strange land and you're going to go liberate them. It was definitely, you know, they sank our ship, right? That was the, you know, like the Tripoli, the War of Tripoli. That was because they were taking our sailors hostage, you know, and it's easy to a foreign war where you're the aggressor, where you're sending somebody else and you don't even have to do food rations or gas rations is too light of a cost.
Yes.
It to me, and now they're talking about creating machines that automatically kill people. This is an awful idea. It's like war should be painful. It should be painful. Keep in mind, I was a soldier, so I'm not saying I want my fellow brothers and sisters to have pain, right? But I am saying you can't get rid of the pain, because if you do get rid of the pain, it becomes too easy to cause pain to others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it needs to be painful also, especially to the decision makers.
Yes.
And this is part of the problem, is that the people making the decisions and the people paying the consequence are often not overlapping at all. And you'll see this where, you know, most soldiers are very good about not giving their political opinions about situations and trying to remain neutral. But once they're out of the military, they'll talk about it more openly. And most of them, it's like, no, we don't want to be sent off to die somewhere in a sandbox. We prefer to do something else. You know, nobody joins the Army or the Navy or the Air Force and says, I want to go kill people. I mean, you wouldn't pass the psych evaluation. It's not, I want to go help the United States take over some other country. You know, if you're going to do that, you join the CIA. But what it is, the thing you always hear is, I want to defend my country. I want to protect my country. It's about defense. People don't join to be offensive. They join to defend. And then they end up getting used. Their goodwill gets expended by people who have no skin in the game.
Yes, correct. And I think this is a big reason why we need to bring back localism. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, the empire of nothing.
I think it wasn't that tell me about it, in case I think it's something else.
So there's an author, Jack Donovan, who's a controversial author. Okay, he writes, anybody who writes exactly what you think, right, or says is exactly what you think, is going to be controversial. Okay, so and I like those people because they expand your thinking, right? So he wrote a book called, well, the first one was The Way of Men, the second one was Becoming a Barbarian. And Becoming a Barbarian, he talks about how modern society offers us nothing. Nothing. And he calls it the empire of nothing. And when you go to war for the empire of nothing, don't be surprised if there's no point and there's no benefit and you get no health care, and they don't care if you commit suicide, because that's what the reality is. So when you bring back localism and community focused organizations, you can't help but care because you see him. You see her, you know the kids. You care if they're literate. You care if the math is good or not. You know what I mean? If you focus locally, you can see the direct ramifications of everybody's decisions, and it's very important.
Yeah. One of the questions that a lot of people ask me is, if we form a community, what happens if we get Waco'd? That's what they want to know. Well, we're going to form a community, and immediately the vultures will descend. And I don't think people realize there will be so many communities formed over the next few years, and older communities will get revived as people start moving back out into community settings. That there is two issues. There's one is that people will have more allegiance to their local community than they do to any federal or state government. And that allegiance will translate into a willingness to defend what they have staked their cause with. That plus the fact that the empire of nothing is fragile. It is extremely fragile. And it's getting more fragile by the day. Most police departments can't retain enough officers to fill all their posts. And the hardest officers to retain are ones in SWAT teams and things like this. They can't fill their SWAT teams because nobody wants to fight for the empire of nothing anymore. People are withdrawing.
On the whole Waco concept, I know it's easy to simplify that idea. Like, there was a community and the government, basically burned them alive. Like that was the end result, right? But they were doing some shady stuff prior. I understand the concern, but at the same time, if you are in a position of weakness and you want to start a local community, by definition, you have to follow the laws that are in place until you have more power than the state. And I'm not talking about a revolution by any means. It's just the way power works, right? Somebody's powerful until they lose their power, and then the next guy's powerful. That's how the hierarchy works, Just like how Americans were domestic terrorists against the British until we became a government. Then those guys are revolutionaries. It's how it works, So this whole idea that if let's just pretend like you guys all decide to move into a neighborhood, right? And this neighborhood now is a neighborhood that has the same values. It's just like Chinatown. It's just like Little Mexico. Nobody's going to care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now, and I think absolutely. And I think a lot of people, they over exaggerate the risk as a way of creating of putting off actually taking action.
Yeah. I think a lot of men especially have like this idea, like they view the outside or the state or the police or the IRS as like them, and they have to fight them, and they have like this cowboy mentality, which is fine. Like I said, 40 acres on Indian country. Like, I get it. It's not that I don't get it, but most people don't care. Like that's the thing. Like if you're a small fish and you're obeying the laws and you're not using words like militia or you know what I mean? Like there are ways to like live a normal life, to build what you want to build and not get the wrong kind of attention because you're just doing your thing, And social media is a huge part of it, right? Like, I know I'm vocal and I make choices to poke holes at the system. I know that I do that. It's in my nature. I like doing it. I think it's funny. But if you don't want that type of attention or those type of responses, just don't talk about it. Like, that's it. Yeah. Like, just don't put it on social media. The first thing people do when they think you might be a threat is they check your Facebook. Don't put shit on Facebook. That's not that hard.
Yeah, I had recently a hit piece written about me making a bunch of false accusations, and all it did is drive people to my social media, and they immediately read this and go, "Oh, this is not true. Right? None of this is true. I just read his social media. That doesn't line up with the guy you just described." They basically described me as like a dangerous international man of mystery or something. Like I was some sort of international terrorist. And which is ridiculous. I mean, all I do is help people. But everyone who knows me And everyone who then found out about me through this article goes and reads what I wrote, and they're like, oh no, this guy's not he's not what they are saying he is. And it very quickly, if you're putting stuff on social media where you're pushing a narrative you can't back up, you're going to get called out on it, and you're going to get in trouble, and it's going to ruin your reputation and attract unwanted attention. Right. If you do put stuff on social media, don't put anything on social media on a private group or a public group that you wouldn't want everyone to know about, because once it's out online, it's gone. It's like words are bullets. Once you let them go, you're responsible for what they hit. Yeah. And honestly, like, that is a weakness I have. Cause like I was prior to the internet, you know what I mean? Like dial up, like it was dial up. I could say something messed up with my buddies and nobody would ever know, And so there are times where I'll just have a thought and then I'll just post my thought out there because I think it's funny or witty or whatever. And then it'll be like moments later, I'm like, oh man, that is not a good thing to say out loud, on the internet. You know what I mean? What's that? Yeah, I will. Okay. Someone's mentioned Owen Benjamin moving out to a rural area. A lot of people are doing this. I had some really small interaction with him once, but a lot of people are doing this. It's him. It's all kinds of people, and most people that are doing it quietly. I said to someone, let's try to form an actual community where we get together regularly and our kids play together, and we have a basically create a high trust small community. And they said, yeah, but to be the first one to do it. I'm like, you think we're the first ones to do this? No, you're not the first one. It's just everybody else is real quiet about it. This is timeless. Oh yeah. So graceful deaths say joining a community that resonates is worth dying for and fighting for your future generations. Living in the empire of nothing will leave your future with nothing. I would like to make one point. You're not really fighting to the death for anything. I know it's a romantic idea, but like, you're just moving to a neighborhood. You're just working a job. You're just planting some corn. I mean, you're letting your kids play with your neighbors. I mean, like I said, I get the romantic idea. I get it, man. I like guns too. but it's there's nobody to fight. I mean, it's not. I think it was Patton that said your objective is not to die for your country, but to get the other guy to die for his. And right. This is a good mentality to have, is to try not to put yourself in the position where you're going to get eliminated, and let other people make the mistakes that get them eliminated over time. And we see this with the left being ultra violent. They're putting themselves in a position where bit by bit, they're making themselves so obnoxious that everyone will turn on them.
I would like to do a point. Okay. I got you, Graceful. I would like to make a point about demographics. Okay. Breeding predicts the future. Culture is the future. Whatever your values are, have kids, teach them your values, and let them procreate. People on the left are self-sterilizing. They don't have a replacement rate. In fact, there was a book written called Shall the Religious Inherit the Earth? And it was about how liberals don't have kids. And so if they want to propagate their political ideology, they need to steal the values, implant their values on other people's kids. Just outbreed them. Just wait them out. Yeah. There was a tweet the other day. Some lady said she can't imagine getting married and having kids because she's still a kid and she's 29. Dude, yeah. The bar of competition is not high. All you got to do is punch out some kids, raise them right, connect with your neighbors, like interact with your kids. Like don't keep them on the screen all the time. The bar's low. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the illusion that it's high is there. I agree. It looks scary. Yeah. It looks like they control everything, but they've got like 4 years and they're all going to be dead.
Yeah. We have, and even we can prevent them from recruiting, at least from our own gene pool, recruiting people over the left by simply teaching our kids how to be immune to manipulation, exposing them to as little of it as possible by not having them on the screens all the time, but also, teaching them how it is that people are manipulated and not using manipulation in our parenting, but parenting honestly, because essentially manipulation is trying to get something out of someone dishonestly, as opposed to persuasion, which is honest. You're honestly trying to help them come to a healthy conclusion. And teaching our kids using persuasion instead of manipulation and explaining to them, okay, you see this? This is manipulation, what that person's doing. Watch out for that. See that person that's gossiping? Okay, that kid that the kids came and said, oh, they don't like you because of this, that, and the other thing. See, they're trying to pressure you, and this is how it works. And explaining it to them, you have to have a good relationship with them to do that. But they'll grow up immune to leftist manipulation. A lot of kids, they're fine until they go to university.
I would like to
go ahead.
Oh no, you're right. Leftists definitely convert kids in college, but I would like to caution about just focusing on the left. Okay, they're very easy to look at and say, like, you guys are crazy, like the far left ones. I got it. No disagreement. The right isn't much better. And I know this is going to be an unpopular thing to say, but hear me out. Okay. They don't like you either. They want you to make them money. That's it. They want you to go and fight for them on some freaking godforsaken place and die. And they don't care. They don't care. Like, you're nothing more than a cog in a wheel to make them money, to give them power. That's it. So like this whole idea of like the right's like better. No, I'm not political. Like, I'm not left or right, and I'm not libertarian, like I'm pro me, I'm pro mine. And, like, okay, if you thought that the right was like pro you, right? Why isn't there a death penalty for pedophiles? If they love the family so much, why isn't there a death penalty for pedophiles?
Or even anyone suggesting it. No one's even suggesting it in power.
That's my point. Yeah, that's my point. Like, why is there insider trading for Congress but not anybody else? Why are there bailouts? The last two bailouts were Republican driven, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to look at the guys who are the crazy, like, that look crazy, like all their signals are crazy, different colored hair and yelling and that face. I get it, but the guys who wear the suit and ties and talk calmer don't care either. The best thing,
manipulation. They manipulate in a different way, and they're actually more effective at appealing to people who are, I don't know how you I prefer to use R and K to describe people. It's I don't know if you know what RK selection theory is. No. So R selection theory are people that have very short time preference. They only care about the moment, and they generally, if they have kids, they'll have a bunch of them, but not invest in them. They're basically like a rabbit. Okay. So their survival strategy is live fast and die young. And then the K selected is, high investment over long periods of time in your offspring, but less offspring. Overall, more survive, but it's a live slow, die old mentality. And those who are on that K selected part of the spectrum, and it's a spectrum, people are somewhere along there. They tend to fall for right-wing propaganda more often because it pretends to be defensive and protective and, patriotic. And that sounds good. Patriotic, the word comes from patrias, which is a love for those who came from your ancestors. So that sounds good. It's love of the family, right? That sounds great. Yeah. And so they're going to appeal to your natural love for your family, for your people. And they're going to say, okay, how do we use that to manipulate you? A manipulator doesn't come along and say, this is my manipulation technique, you're going to conform to it. No, they figure out where your weaknesses are, where the chinks in your armor are. Suit of armor always has a bunch of holes in it because you need to be able to move. And they're going to find those holes, and they're going to put their little dagger in those holes, and they're going to get us. And the manipulator is great at figuring out where those are. Sometimes that means he needs to put on a suit and a tie, or sometimes he needs to dress in all black and throw an avocado cocktail through a window. But we see just recently with this stock market shenanigans going on that, the moment that, a bunch of essentially kids living in their basement figured out how to game the system the same way that the suits have been doing this all along. Now those guys, let's shut them down. Rules for you, not for me.
Yep.
And I think it's a lot of people are waking up over this whole thing, realizing that there are two sets of rules.
Oh yeah. I think my personal values are actually, you ever watch Godfather 1, the first Godfather? Okay. Remember when Michael was going to join, I believe, the Marines, and he was going to go fight, and they said dying for strangers is stupid. When I was younger and I first watched it, I was like, I don't understand that at all, because I was very patriotic. Like I was like bleeding red, white, and blue, and then over time, it's like, it is family. It's family versus the world, or your community versus the world, putting your trust in strangers is a foolish thing. You wouldn't do that in real life. I mean, like you would never walk up to somebody on the street and saying like, I trust you with my money. I trust you with my political decisions. I trust you with the education of my child. But if you put it on TV, okay, so you're on social media as well. Have you noticed that people talk to you like they know you, even if you don't know who they are? Yeah. So, and I've been both the person who's done that and the person who's received it, and both are kind of strange. Like I was visiting a studio one time, and I said, "Hey, tell this guy I said hi." And when I said it, I go, "He doesn't know me," and he goes, "I know." I'm like, "Huh, that's kind of weird that I felt that type of connection." And then I was talking to somebody, and somebody talked to me like we were buddies, and I'm like, who are you? Like a joke. It was like a tease, and like the way I'm wired, we can definitely joke like as friends, but if you're teasing me like guys do, but I don't know you, it's like disrespectful, because you're assuming that you can push me around, right? And that's the way I take it, and I don't know if it's because I was a Navy brat and moved around all the time, but like, if we're boys, yeah, you can make fun of me all day and really, really razz me. If you don't know me and you start making fun of me, I think it's because you're trying to get one over on me or try to push me into a corner. And it's very strange how the TV gives you the impression that you know people. Like you don't know Donald Trump. You don't know Obama. You don't know Biden. You don't know your favorite news anchor, the weather girl, like they don't know you exist. And knowing that is I know it's kind of weird and kind of hard to think about these things, at first, but once you kind of internalize, like the only people you really know are your family, your coworkers, and you only know them, the work side of them. You don't even know the personal side of them, like all these things, you realize that not only is your influence that, but the influence of others becomes that. Because they're freaking strangers. What do you care what a stranger says?
Tons of people ask me, do you trust Donald Trump? And I'm like, I don't know Donald Trump. Basically, I trust him to act in his own best interest because that seems the kind of guy he is. And that's about it. Like,
Yeah,
but
that's not remarkably selfish.
I've been posting for almost the entire Trump presidency. Stop thinking Donald Trump's going to ride in on a white horse and save you. He's not going to save you. You have to save yourself. You have to federate with a bunch of brothers close to you and save yourselves. And like, once you save yourselves, ally with other people that did the same thing, and then save yourselves on a bigger scale. But it's not going to come. Nobody wants to be our daddy and come and save us and rescue us from our problems. That doesn't happen when you're an adult. When you're an adult, you save yourself and everybody else because you're a man and that's your job.
Right. I have a theory on why that's so prevalent in the West, this idea that somebody will swoop in and save the day. About 100 years ago, the current idea of the book of Revelation, where God will come down and all the Christians will be saved, right? And like they won't have to suffer the end of the world. I think if you have that as your belief system, right? That's how you believe the world will end. It's very easy to take that spiritual view and put it as a worldview. I don't actually have to do nothing because Jesus is going to save me, right? And not only that, now, well, Trump's going to save me. Not only that, but this guy will save me and that guy will save me. And I'm not saying that they're treating them like God, like they believe they're God, but I'm just saying they're taking this model that they already believe and they're just projecting it. Like, for instance, like if you believe, and this is all people, by the way, this isn't picking on anybody. If you believe that the world is against you, like every encounter you go to, you're going to have like that view of like self-protection, like somebody's going to get me, right? And, it's just it's human. It's okay to be human with it. You know what I mean? So don't like get wrapped up or whatever. Just realize that if you believe in that version of the rapture, just acknowledge that you might have maybe handicap's not the right word. I don't really know what the right word. You might have the habit of assuming that there will be a superhero that rescues you. And that's
and society's really strongly encouraged that. With all
yes,
the
of course they would.
even because it pacifies people. If someone's going to rescue me, I don't need to worry about my future. I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be fine. It's a passivity, and almost everything that we're given at a very high level in society is designed to undermine and pacify us.
Yeah, medication.
Medication. It's the opium of the people. Keep people drugged up psychologically. Hey, if they can get us on drugs, they'd love to do that. But if they can't, at least keep us drugged up psychologically, keep us drugged up emotionally, keep us, so many people, they think they have no vices, and they're also accomplishing nothing in life. And their entire vice is, fantastical thinking. That is their vice. Right. They have these ideas that everything's this and that and the other thing are going to work out just because. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to watch this and it's going to be okay. I think for a lot of people got sucked into Q theories thinking the same thing, that suddenly it's, somebody's going to save us, and no one will save us. And even if someone wanted to save us, they could only save us with our help. Yes. Because no individual is going to defeat the evil that's in the world. You could get someone that leads, and nowadays there's too many people to lead for a single individual. It would be lead in the sense of more of a symbolic leadership where they help people to unite around a cause. But even so, it's going to take individual effort. It's never in history does one man come along and save a nation. It doesn't happen that way. It happens through collective effort, mostly of the men of that nation, with the support and love of their wives as well. But we the less passive we are, the more that we take these things into our own hands, and the more that we get off that propaganda that keeps reminding us to, or encouraging us to be passive, the better society will be at large. I tweeted today that the reason we have so much corruption is because it's extremely lucrative.
Oh yeah.
Buying politicians is lucrative and not really particularly dangerous. Hey, we catch them and they get slap on the hand. Oh, by the way, you get to be president now.
Right. So here's my theory on that. Okay. We all agree that the systems are corrupt, right? We all agree that it's up to you to create a new system, right? Use the old system to make the new system. Break the old system to make the new system. If you think the market's manipulated, ride part of it. Don't try to get it at the bottom. Don't try to get up at the top. Just hit part of it and take that money and then go build something you actually believe in. There is, in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with abusing the abuser to get, less abused.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think every man should read Art of War. One of the things it says in there is, as much as possible, live off the enemy. Live off the enemy's resources. And we should be doing that whenever we can. And I had some people telling me, well, that seems like we're kind of abusing the system. And I'm like, no, the system declared war on us. Everything's fair game from here on out. Yeah.
I have my dad is very conservative, so we have these types of conversations often. And he was talking about like social programs, and he didn't like it. And I said, I don't care anymore. And he goes, why? I'm like, well, we borrow more money than they borrow from the state, or than they get from the state anyway. I'm like, it's all corrupt. Like, money's not real. I'm like, nothing's real anymore. You have to realize that. I'm like, so it doesn't really matter if somebody takes from the state, because they're just going to make up more money. Like, nothing's real. And when nothing's real, it can't last for forever. You have to get yours so you can protect yourself and insulate yourself from the coming disruptions that are inevitable. Like, my wife and I were talking about just world history, right? I said, we've never had a famine. We've never had like locusts, which means we're going to be closer to having locusts and famines and droughts than we have in the past, because like nature doesn't just say like, I'm done doing the famine thing. That's not how the world works. Definitely going to have a famine in the future. Definitely going to have a drought in the future. Definitely going to have pestilence and plagues. And to be honest, I thought plague was the only thing that wouldn't happen in my lifetime. Like, that was the only thing. I was like, I read like the list of the biblical things, and I'm like, I don't really see plague.
Yeah, we got antibiotics.
I know. Oh my gosh. Did you know the antibiotics are less effective than they used to be? And they're continuing to be less and less effective. And so what they're
colloidal silver around all the time.
Right on. So what they're doing is they're actually going back to medieval manuscripts about how they cured things prior to modern medicine. And they found that it actually works the way it's written. And it like they read, it was for cataracts. They read like the recipe and the time frame for cataracts, and it works. It sounds like witchcraft, but it works.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes too, they find out there's 10 steps, but 3 of them were key to making it work. We're actually able to improve on some of these old recipes. A lot of people with, instead of using topical antibiotic ointment, which is way overused, they can put on honey, and things like fresh, raw honey will prevent infections and surface cuts. A lot of times, the big reason that pestilence was such a problem in the past was because of famine. People were underfed. They were starving to death. That's why they were a lot smaller than in height-wise, even than people today in some cases. So they were starving to death. But today, people aren't starving, they're overfed. And to a large extent, it makes you just as vulnerable to plagues as being underfed. And, look at COVID. Almost nobody died of COVID who wasn't either overweight, chronically out of shape, or suffering from some lifestyle-induced health problem. One of the things people will say, I can't move to the country, I can't do this, I can't do that. Maybe you can't right now. Start planning, figure a way to go eventually. But you can stop eating crap. You can stop getting drunk. You can start exercising. Oh, the gyms are closed? Yeah, do some push-ups. Get a chin bar, do some chin-ups. Just jump up and down until you're not fat anymore,
Go for a walk.
It doesn't have to be complex. Yeah, go for a walk. It doesn't have to be complicated. And there is solutions for our problems out there. It comes from this is why I talk about agency to people. Agency is taking personal responsibility for yourself and then getting control over your instincts, your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. Basically, self-mastery. Someone said it was homesteading for the mind. You're set up in your mind, and you cultivate it the way you want, and you turn it into the kind of place that's going to serve you. And that entire process has been undermined for the middle class. It used to, Stoicism was a middle-class philosophy of mindfulness. The basic ideas behind it were promoted in the Western world, either because you all had to participate in the militia in some parts of the world, and others it was just necessary for survival. You couldn't live in Northern Europe and be a flake. Like, you just couldn't. You'd end up starving to death. Right. If you didn't think ahead, you were dead. I don't know if you've ever done any real super cold weather camping.
Super camping?
Yeah, super cold weather camping, like 20 to 40 degrees below zero.
No.
Yeah.
I've been in the field when it was cold, but nope.
Yeah.
Not that.
I've done this in Canada, where it's so cold that if you take your gloves off, you have 30 seconds to start the fire without your gloves on. Otherwise, your hands are totally numb and you can't feel it. And you can accidentally, cut your hand off trying to strike a fire steel. And when you're in an environment like that, you have to think really carefully. You think about everything. You want to start a fire in an hour? Okay, I'm going to take my Bic lighter and I'm going to put it inside my shirt pocket so it's warm enough to start. And like all of the things you're doing, you're thinking ahead. You have to be very calm because you'll make more mistakes when you're not calm. If you need something, you got to think about it. Like you want a drink, you got to think about it an hour ahead of time because you're going to have to warm up water in order to get a drink. And everything you do, you got to think ahead. And it starts to create this mindfulness in you that, you can't be worrying about the problems of the world because you're going to die. Yeah. And we used to have that built into life. We were worried about the problems of survival. We weren't worried about politics and other things like that. That was a faraway problem for faraway people.
Yeah. I would like to encourage everybody who is, well, everybody in general, but especially if you're young. I apologize for the family.
You your mine earlier.
I wasn't sure if it was mine or not earlier. I would like to encourage you guys. Everybody says like just have fun in your 20s. As a guy who had fun in his 20s, I'm going to let you know that that's not the right decision. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to build these habits, right? And then they're going to be much harder to change as you get older. So if you don't have any bad habits or you have few bad habits, don't get any more. If you're younger, try to get the habits that are healthy and wise, and you can still have fun, but like don't, if it's in a movie, don't do that, and
a lot of what people say is fun is essentially torturing themselves.
Right.
Like my idea of let's go have fun is, hey, let's go hike in the woods, or let's go work out. Like this is my idea of having fun. And the idea of going, like I like to go out with people and do stuff, and I'll have a couple of drinks and, I enjoy myself too, maybe a cigar or something. But it's like the idea of getting completely drunk, it's just, that's not fun. Like that is just not fun. And I'm a married man with kids. So I got to set the example for my kids as well. And I'm thinking, this is not fun. When I had twin babies, I didn't drink anything for about 6 months because I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have any of my abilities impaired. And then, something happens to the kids, there's two of them. So if they both start choking, it takes two parents. And I didn't want something like that to happen. So for a while, I cut completely off the alcohol. I don't see fun in what most people think is fun. And what it is they're trying to detach from reality. Yeah. And that's what's fun for them, is because it's a detach. Their reality sucks. When you're 20 and you're a guy, your reality can kind of suck. Like you don't have any money. You may not be yet attractive to women because women tend to like older guys. Some 20-year-old guys are, but you may not get the women you want. You probably don't have a cool car. You probably don't have anything cool in your life. And so it kind of sucks. And it's easy to get, wrapped up in forgetting that through drinking and drugs and partying and stuff.
There's also no adventure.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yes.
They've gotten rid of all adventure. Like, I think that's a big, you can be poor and go on an adventure and like, you don't care that you don't have any money. I mean, I grew up lower middle class. And then like I said, when I was 16, like everything was mine. I was poor. Like I had tons of adventures. I went back to college in my later 20s and these kids don't do anything. Like they don't do anything. And of course your life sucks if you don't have any money, you don't have a good car, you don't have a good girl, you can't, and like, that's why video games are so popular. You can push play and then all of a sudden you can go raid a neighboring village and you can build a town and like, you can go explore new worlds. They have to have these simulations for you because if you can't do it in real life, because guys are wired for that, if you can't do it in real life, you have to have it simulated or you're going to go burn something. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, and I think for a lot of guys right now, COVID is this big missed opportunity. I can't say exactly what happens, but gets dark outside, and my son and I go running around in the dark, fixing problems. Won't be too specific about it, but there's all of the places that have been blocked off with tape that you can't use the jungle gym and stuff with tape because of COVID. By the morning, it's all gone. And this is like a ton of adventure for him. And he has a lot of fun doing these kind of things. And it's like that fills his need for adventure.
That's the vitamins that Joey stole.
No problem. Mine do the same thing. It's because we've been over an hour now. So they're like, it should be done by now. They know what time it is. So yeah, no, I will wrap up. I think for a lot of people, recognizing where they can start is it starts inside you to say, I'm going to take personal responsibility. And once you start doing that, everything else starts to come in like a dominoes. I'm going to take personal responsibility. Okay, what am I going to do about that? Because actions are what you end up doing when you take personal responsibility. Okay, I'm going to take care of myself. Okay, I'm going to take care of my family. Okay, now I've got my shit together. If I want to move to the country, I can. It's a terrible idea to suddenly, your marriage is on the rocks, your kids hate your guts, and now you're going to go, let's all move out to the country together. get a bunch of animals.
Yeah.
Because we don't have chaos in our life.
Yeah.
Get yourself together, get yourself organized, take care of yourself, and all kinds of opportunities open up.
I'd like to point out that I did it the opposite way. I did my wife first, then my kids, then and now I'm working on myself. I would like to say once again, don't do it the way I did it. Like I do everything wrong the first time, and then I have to undo it. You know what I mean? Your way is definitely better. So if you think in your head, like if I fix my relationship with my wife, like then it'll be good. Well, no, because like then you still messed up in every other area. And so what you end up doing is if you pick everything but you're going to have to go down the list and pick, all the way down the list until you're the only thing left. And then you're brand new at it still. Like, so it's just going to be more difficult because you're older and you have these habits that are really hard to get rid of, So if you start with you, it's going to bleed evenly into every other opportunity of your life because that's who you are instead of like controlling your behaviors in one section or another. So that's something.
If you want to fix your relationship with your wife and you've got a whole load of problems of your own, all she's going to see is all those problems. Mm-hmm. Women are programmed to see, not see opportunity, but see risks. They're programmed to see danger and risks and want to avoid them. And if you're full of all kinds of your own problems, that makes it really hard to repair a relationship with your spouse because all she sees is the problems. Same with your kids. You say to your kid, I want you to be responsible. And they're like, yeah, but Dad, you do. And then they list a bunch of ways you're irresponsible. It's really hard to fix those relationships if you don't start with yourself. And you are right. Doing it the backwards way is a lot more work. Either way, get it done. That's the real thing, is get it done. Get started, get it done, and don't give up until it's done. In the end, it's the people who don't give up that win.
Yes. Yep. Even for, like I said, I do everything wrong the first time. I don't really give up, and that's the only reason why I made it forward.
Excellent. It's been wonderful talking to you today, Kyle. And I'm going to, I left in the comments below this video in the link, and there's a link to your podcast. So people should definitely go check that out. And thank you. Well, hopefully one day we'll get to meet each other face to face. And if you ever come out to Portugal, definitely make that a priority. We'll get together and have a beer and talk to each other.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm actually trying to get to Portugal summer, fall this year. That's my goal.
Good. Excellent. Thank you and have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching our video, and I hope it inspired you to take action in your life. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video to get more agency building content. The real secret sauce is in our newsletter. Click on the link in the video description below to sign up. I promise I won't flood your inbox, and anything that we do send you will be of high value.